Okay, so we have started the webinar. Let's wait 30 seconds for our attendees to join. Looks like they're rolling in now, so we'll just hang tight. We're 20 and growing, so we'll keep waiting for another moment. Okay. So thank you everyone for joining today. Another installment of the AWP Community of Practice webinar series. Today, Yogesh Srivastava joins us from Teknobuilt, representing the COAA Advanced Work Packaging Committee. He'll be presenting Advanced Work Packaging, a Global Perspective. We have 1 hour, and we've got some time set aside for Q&A as well. So think of your questions as you're listening and watching Yogesh's presentation, and we can chat in about 45 minutes. So without further ado, thanks Yogesh. Lloyd Rankin is also here from Group ASI to help facilitate the session, and I'll pass the microphone over to those gentlemen to start us off.
Great. So let me just start by talking about the AWP Community of Practice. We've started doing this weekly webinar series approximately 4 weeks ago. The community has grown by 20% in that period of time, and we strongly recommend that you invite your peers to join the community of practice because we think there's some good information that's coming out. Our vision statement, which is kind of a work in practice, is safer, more productive, value-creating construction projects. And we really believe in that. And we believe that safety should be the first thing we talk about. Next slide, Steve. Our mission is to create a community to share knowledge, encourage discussion, and promote adoption of AWP and other construction-related productivity initiatives. So we don't see AWP as being exclusive. We think that there are benefits to lean and advantages to other construction productivity approaches, and we see AWP as being a very valuable approach, but not the only one. So we really do want you to take advantage of the discussion feature of the LinkedIn site and ask questions, get discussions going. The more that you participate, the more you'll get out of the community of practice. Now, next slide, please, Steve. I'm really fortunate to know Yogesh quite well. We've worked on the AWP community within COAA for about 10 years now. And he's really is a subject matter expert in advanced work packaging with an engineering background and experience globally. And we're very fortunate that he's agreed to do a session for us today and talk about some of his experience globally with advanced work packaging. So rather than taking up any more of his time, I'm going to throw it over to Yogesh.
Thank you, Lloyd. And thank you for the team that is attending, people who are passionate about advanced work packaging and wanting to help the industry to do things better, build better. And it's certainly a privilege to be able to share what I know and what I have experienced as part of this journey, which started long back in 2003, if I may say, but with the WorkFace planning effort. But it really picked up another level of momentum starting in 2009 when CII and COAA joined together to introduce advanced work packaging. A little bit on Construction Owner Association of Alberta. I've been chairing this industry body based out of Alberta, as the name says, since 2011. In every year, we have a charter and we take forward whatever best we can do in improving things in the industry. In 2019 and 2020, as we are going forward, our charter had 5 major elements. We were looking at engineering readiness, and some of this is basically an effort called in the playbooks that we are preparing. Our committee is also working extensively on the material readiness side and getting confidence on the supply chain aspect of it. Made some association with Supply Chain Association of Canada as well. The procurement work process is something we are pioneering. Along with that, we are also looking at on-site readiness, but that is in the sense of back to the basics for why are we doing AWP for work and the WorkFace planning aspect of it. One important aspect is also the people's mindset readiness. I mean, all these practices and the guidelines are there, but are we ready in our mind to become more productive, more safer, more smarter? That's one aspect of it. And we have rejuvenated what I would say the path of construction, the POC, which is in the center of all this as a key activity that we look at it for the success of any AWP implementation. So these 5 important elements are part of our charter, and if there is any interest, please don't hesitate to connect with me or my co-chair Glenn Warren in this initiative. I'll also introduce a little bit about Teknobuilt. Our company basically is all about pioneering end-to-end digital AWP to de-risk execution. We've taken things digital. We realize that the advanced work packaging is something that touches almost all parts of your project execution. So how can we do this in a better way, in a smarter way, and take an end-to-end digital approach? That is what Teknobuilt is engaged on. An important thing is that we've taken the principles from advanced work packaging as well as what Lloyd mentioned briefly. It's not a dichotomy, that it's only AWP. There are good things out there in the industry. We've taken the lean system, the Toyota production system, so that we can bring the operational discipline to get things done, and in a digital platform. So that's what is Teknobuilt. Let me share the agenda. From a global perspective, what we have seen, I thought it will be good for people who know AWP, that it's great. I mean, they may have all the fundamentals around it, but for people who are probably not knowing too much about AWP and where it started, I thought some time spent in the origin of WorkFace planning and AWP, its adoption in Canada and USA, then the as-is around construction projects, that is across the globe, and the challenges that we are seeing in various regions, whether I've been in Yokohama in Japan, or in Australia, in Seoul, South Korea, India, Kazakhstan, UK, wherever we've had the experience of working with many companies or holding roundtables, quite important golden nuggets were gathered. Some of it I will be sharing in terms of challenges and issues to address. But certainly what I want you to see is, along with advanced work packaging, there are other related industry practices. I think that if we spend some time understanding that and how it is placed, the role of technology and what's the end goal, this is the agenda that I wish to cover with you. Now, in between also, I was okay in terms of questions, etc., that you may have to come across, and perhaps I can try and address. But Steve has also set aside around 10 to 15 minutes towards the end of the session as well. So I think we will roll into the next part of it. Let's spend a bit of a time to see what was the history of WorkFace planning and evolution of AWP. Somewhere around 2003, this is where Lloyd was also, this is where Lloyd's journey started, when he was invited by COAA to help study some of the problem areas and put together some report or on the state of affairs, which basically later on brought us into what I would say our realities in Canadian projects, where this is somewhere out of in north of Fort McMurray that we have a open site out there where we are starting to build, and just an early days type of a picture. We have done the clearing, the laydown, etc. has been set up, and things are coming together. When we are working in such remote environments, fly in, fly out, camp accommodations, travel, etc., and the temperature is somewhere in -15 to -30, certainly productivity was a big issue. And saying that necessity is the mother of invention, I think we were looking at what can be done better so that when we are building these projects, we can do it in a more efficient manner. So showing you a site in progress that I have been part of as well, multi-billion-dollar job. But this is the reality. This is where materials are. This is where we live. This is where things, it is a tough environment in which we basically build. And I'm sure many parts of the world have some or the other difficulties. So what started was a term called WorkFace planning, and the central theme was how can we address poor productivity issues. To be honest, WorkFace planning in some way borrows the discipline from turnarounds, where in the turnaround environment, we have a very synergistic environment, high performance team. We plan the job by job cards and by the hour and try to get the maximum in terms of productivity and certainty and reducing the downtime. So if you look at the turnaround environment, they look at addressing unplanned breaks, rework, waste, stop minor stoppages, etc., and plan everything. WorkFace planning in some ways borrowed that for the project's activity or the construction activity and focused on three important things of design certainty, material certainty, and planned resources. So our origin, if I may say, traces back to the shutdown and turnaround environment. We took some of the good things that they do in terms of pre-planning the work, constraint managing it, and going out and doing it right first time. So if you look at some of the differences in turnaround management, scope is dynamic, it is work order based, etc. Those are some of the things which some people who have seen that environment can relate to. Time is in hours or shifts, and the schedules are very compressed. Take it across to WorkFace planning. Scope is static, it's visible to us. We have cost codes. The work is based on an installation work package. Safety is important, and we are working in a week to a shift, basically one shift of 10 people working for 10 days around a 10-hour type of a schedule. So what we were looking is improving productivity, and the concept of what those days was called was field installation work packages, which later on got generalized with advanced work packaging. But basically it was all about planning the work, release the work in advance, and then work the plan. And as a result, the improvements in productivity, cost certainty, and schedule certainty was happening. Okay. We started getting some successes by 2007. This statistic, which was a benchmark, a starting point, I mean, where traditionally out of 10 hours, 3.7 hours were tool time, the rest were engaged in something else. I would not call all wastage, but certainly it was getting utilized in waiting or movement or planning, etc. But as you see, productivity was very low. Two, the early successes on our jobs where we improved on tool time, and the non-tool time started to reduce significantly. So as a result, not only from the crew perspective, but even from a foreman's perspective, if he was only spending 15% in supervision, the rest of the hours were spent elsewhere, people who were using WorkFace planning this has started to improve significantly. So all this was going great. IWP-based execution, a discipline of getting things released, a sequential set of events would drive the IWP. But one important thing to understand between WorkFace planning and advanced work packaging is, 15 years ago or so, we were in the field. WorkFace planning got us the discipline that all the design deliverables have been given, but we are creating what we call installation work packages in the trailers and then giving it to the site people. So that was what was going on. It was driving some efficiencies. Let's see what was going wrong though. So I'll just cover this quickly. Most people can look into this. COAA has the literature. One important thing to understand is problems get incorrectly placed on the worker. This is one of my firm beliefs. Well, people do not know what to do. They're not doing what they're supposed to do, or they don't have what they need to have to perform the work in terms of material, services, or permits. And many times when we say it's done, there is still a lot of rework. And by the time you get to know there's a problem, it is 2 week, 3 week late, crew has moved on to do something else. So problem usually, even in the WorkFace planning, was that all this work that is coming, front-end deliverables were either late or incomplete. And then there is vendor data and other things that are needed. Timely deliveries from engineering was not getting aligned with construction build priorities. There comes basically the next level of advanced work packaging, where we are looking as part of a partnership with CII, led by Dr. Bill O'Brien, supported by the CII leadership, and spearheaded from the AWP committee, those days our WorkFace planning committee. We basically produced CIRT 272, where we look at advanced work packaging in 3 volumes, and later on subsequent studies were also done validating it. So just a quick primer on what is advanced work packaging, and then we go into some global context of what's going on. What was the term advanced work packaging evolved from something called enhanced work packaging, earlier reports called EWP, but as you already know, EWP is a common term that we are using. So we changed it to AWP. At that time, we did not know that there will be such significant interest, but thanks to all the people in this call, as well as people who in the early days were partnering and working hard to put this together and improving project delivery, this advanced work packaging has certainly extended itself beyond Canada, US, etc. The important part was the introduction of a discipline in a systematic way to deliver and do some pre-planning with construction as bringing construction considerations upstream in the entire scheme of project planning and delivery, right as early as in the feed stage of the project. And that is what advanced work packaging provided, a structured method to do all the front-end work. So, and as a result, the WorkFace planning, which is IWPs, is a much more smoother operation. I think with AWP now, waiting at the fag end and the trailer and preparing IWPs at that last moment probably should now get much more easier. There should be automated IWPs, because if you've done proper AWP, then IWP is the no-brainer or requires less effort. So in terms of this whole work, the front-end planning was emphasized significantly, and the RT 272 and 319 model basically talked about doing certain things early in the game. So with this much of a little bit of a primer, on advanced work packaging, let's see where we are across the globe in terms of what's going on in this industry. But as you see it, the best point to start advanced work packaging implementation is right up front in stage 1, where we are doing the feed stage. The outputs of feed it does necessitate some extra deliverables, some extra considerations in your schedule, in your model breakdown philosophy, in your supply chain management scheme of things. Those things, if they're set early in stage 1, great. If not, at least if you are able to pick it up during detail engineering early in the game in one of the projects that we are helping, they picked it up towards the bridging phase between stage 1 and stage 2. One of the jobs running out of Italy in Milan. And that is also not a bad position to be in. But at the same time, what I would suggest is, of course, when you're looking at, when a lot of construction activity has started, if you're trying to implement that, that really isn't AWP as such, it is WorkFace planning. So just the 3 stages I wanted to clarify there. Let's look at the as-is across the globe. Look anywhere, whether it's North America, Europe, Latin America, Africa, Middle East, across the board, more than 50% of the projects are facing both cost overrun and schedule delays. So obviously, all of us know that the problem is, we had a problem in Canada, and it got kind of the collaboration between CII and COAA basically produced some guideline, a best practice for advanced work packaging to solve some issues. If you look across the globe, similar issues are existing, but at the same time, another perspective, if you look at, this was only 365 oil and gas projects. I also had the opportunity to meet a few other, say, industry experts. Say Mark Farmer, who is from the commercial and residential industry. The Farmer report is very famous in the UK, and he talks about all the issues that the industry is facing. So if you go across oil and gas into infrastructure, power, rail, or any other, this across the globe, any construction project, there are some challenges. It is just not restricted to oil and gas. Mind you, this whole concept evolved out of an oil and gas industry, which in some ways is very disciplined in terms of what material you buy, what specification is there, every flange, every say material is tracked and checked, etc. And if you're looking at some other industries, yes, the replacements are easy. After all, you're pumping water, and perhaps there is a little bit more ability to substitute things and do things differently. So a highly disciplined oil and gas industry versus some other industries, there are some nuances there. But generally speaking, challenges are somewhat, the problems are across industries. If you look at the commonality across in any of these, from the stakeholder, people who are participating in delivering the project, the field and subcontractor issues, there are certain things which take any project in North America or anywhere else in the world. Similar issues are there. If you look at the EPCs, they are challenged. And from a management or an owner's perspective, again, they have a different set of issues, but these are some commonalities that I've seen. So people who are actually building, the construction companies, there are, as you see in the last 2-3 years, example, Carillon, and later on in, that is from the UK, but even as recent as some of the companies who have been around for more than 100 years, their very existence is at risk. McDermott has some issues, so has companies like Floor are also looking at ways of how can they arrest the free fall and get better with it. If there is two words to see what is the challenge, it's poor execution. We spend as an industry a lot of time in planning, 3D modeling, tying the schedules, estimating, packaging, and all that. If we look a little beyond why things fail, etc., is there, but until we hit the site, everything looks good, optimistic, and we have all these good things in place. Execution is where we fail. And in words of Mark Farmer, he says, if we don't modernize, we are going to die. So if people haven't seen this report, you may want to have a look at it. It comes from another industry, but still a very interesting read. Talks about the situation more in the context of UK, where the Brexit and all has come into play, but labor shortages generally are in common as well. In Canada, when we were at peak of construction, we were looking with anybody who could take a shovel and do something. So there are certain perspectives and commonality. I'll encourage you to have a look at this report as well. So it's time to decide the industry's future. So when you look at it from a global perspective, it's not just the North American context. I think as an industry, construction industry is challenged. And as we come out of this tough situation that is going on presently across the globe, where the world has come to a standstill, I think we will be even more challenged. If earlier we were not in a difficult situation, now certainly things will become from a very severe condition will be upon us. So just to look at from another perspective, let's look at issues to address by region, because while I shared the commonality and the challenge that is across the globe, let's look at what is it in terms of issues across the globe. As you all know, AWP is all about managing scope by work packages. So the focus is, when we say an EWP or a CWP, it is a set of drawings, quantity, information, a schedule, etc., tied and packaged like a mini project that somebody can go ahead and go buy, plan, and build it all the way till a trade group can do something with it. So it's all about managing scope by work packages. And you know what? Industry is taking note. So many ITBs that are coming up now are asking or demanding that thou shalt do AWP. Why? Because the number one reason why I feel AWP is spreading is previously, I believe the owners had a difficulty in terms of seeing through the scope that is being worked on or built for or purchased or materials been bought for. AWP, from the traditional work breakdown structure of a multidiscipline construction work area, etc., or a WBS level 2 or level 3, now gives an extra fidelity at a discipline level and a much more dynamic level, that what is the construction work package, which is a discipline-focused activity, gives you a good sense of where we are with things. So it gives an extra level of fidelity. So as of, I guess this is a little dated, but still AWP in this region is spreading across the globe. And the main reason is that owners are driving it. Scope control is an important aspect of it that helps them get an extra fidelity. Now, what I have observed, especially in other parts of the world, if it is in the ITB, people have started going in and taking a check mark that yes, I can, thou shalt do AWP. These are, you follow the COAA CII guideline. Owner expect that. One of the challenges I see is people see this as one more check box, especially EPC companies, and say, yes, we will do it. I really want to caution companies that are doing that without getting some understanding that advanced work packaging requires some extra effort upfront, some extra deliverables upfront, some extra coordination upfront, and the results of which show in the later part of the game. It shows in construction activity, it shows in reduced rework, it shows in reduced interruptions, but it is just not business as usual. So those people who enter into an owner contract for compliance or put this as another tick mark that AWP is, okay, we have already been doing packages, I think I would remind them to wake up, because that is, AWP is a method that drives a new set of discipline or enhanced set of discipline right up front in terms of engineering activities, engineering deliverables, your schedule, and as I said, the supply chain, then it impacts construction. The second part is, if owners demanded AWP, you as an EP&C company also need to see that it has to be a win-win situation. It shouldn't be that, okay, it's needed, so I'm doing it. It can be used as a transformational experience on one project, or if you have taken a corporate initiative, then across your projects. But certainly look at the advantages as either E, P, or C in this whole process and drive it to your own benefit. And in that context, I would like to share with you another slide, next slide, and that is issues across the globe. As I went around in each part of the world, holding construction roundtable, there are a set of different priorities and challenges, and their order is also different. In Australia, it is probably some things are overriding other aspects. So what my message here is, just simply copying the model that we evolved, where we have labor costs are very high in Canada and US, to taking it to a project in Nigeria or any other part of the world where labor cost is really not a big issue, and then taking the same concept of time on tools and applying it elsewhere is really, I think that if you just copy AWP as it is into your region or into your company, you might run into quicksand. Because the drivers, I think the method and the principles are important, but the drivers could be very different in your region. So I would encourage you to look at advanced work packaging and tailor it towards what are your top 3 challenges and how AWP or any related practice can help you. If you look at Asia Pacific, for example, poor quality of work, competency and of the crews at the subcontractor level who touch the job, who build the project, that has been an important aspect, that there is a lot of rework and quality gets compromised quite a bit. So extensive checking. Another part is on safety. Those were top issues. Although safety, the way it is practiced in Canada, is not probably practiced the same way in the developing or other parts of the world. However, people who have looked at safety as a tick mark or a checklist or cover my back attitude versus utilizing safety and productivity orientation together to motivate and bring mindfulness to what you are going to do today is an important aspect of productivity. So just time on tools is one criteria, but if I can free up the mind of people to become and have them commit to be more safer and more productive, automatically my productivity number goes high. Because if one guy gets hurt, 2 people go with him to the first aid, and 6 or 8 people are demotivated and they don't want to do the job, you've lost productivity. And here we are building packages and everything else. The reality is people don't want to do the work. So important aspect is the cultural change that comes into taking advanced work packaging and the productivity message and blending it with your culture within your organization and taking it all the way till the end where it really matters. Otherwise, we are just doing paperwork of preparing packages, releasing packages. Everybody gets a tick mark, no change inside. So some considerations very different in Asia Pacific. Australia, that was interesting. Everybody is the boss. There was such a huge cultural issue. Everybody wants to do it their own way. Nobody wants to change. There were certain things. So how do you do the change management aspect of it? That was a challenge. Of course, in North America, this is more familiar: cost certainty, productivity, and schedule. Those three things were driving here. In Kazakhstan and other areas, multicultural people from all parts of the world were working on this job. What is kind of no-brainer to certain people, language issues and other things were difficulties in other areas. Again, the language was, sometimes I do share. English is my second language. My first language is work packages. Tell me which work package you're working on, what drawings are missing, what materials, tell me anything that you want to talk about on the project in the language of an EWP, CWP, or an IWP. Don't tell me this drawing, that drawing, etc., or this activity or that activity. So that's where, I mean, let's use work package as a common language to get people together. And obviously, as a company, there are certain things around visibility, leadership, etc. So what I want this group to, at least my experience has been, if we are implementing AWP, we have to know and determine why we are doing it and how will it drive profitability in my region, in my company, in our style of execution. I also wanted to touch base on cost reimbursable, lump sum, etc. But at some other opportunity, we'll have a look into that. But let's put it at this point that across the globe, things are different. Adopt AWP to suit your type of needs. So while we are on that AWP, and since we are looking at a global perspective, there are many other good things also happening. I'm sure you are familiar with at least lean construction. People talk about that. So should I do AWP? Should I do lean? Just a month ago, I was at the CURT conference. The lean project delivery group was in session. I was fortunate to get time to participate for half a day in that. And suddenly there was generally there has been a thought that, you know what, let's look at what is advanced work packaging. Maybe these two things are like brothers rather than thou shalt do lean, forget AWP, or do AWP, what is lean, etc. Many schools of thoughts. Integrated project delivery, advanced work packaging, building information modeling. I put it into a practice. Sometimes there is some confusion around that too. Theory of constraints, production management, and there are a few more. So I just thought a few minutes on that will also be helpful when you look at all these different practices across the industry and in other places in the world. I'd say lean is more dominant in the European region, and building information modeling also is coming a lot from that side. I see theory of constraints getting practiced a lot in the developing world as well. Just a quick look. Lean, essentially these 6 important aspects: total quality, just in mind, Kanban, Kaizen, theory Z, etc. These are the principles that drive it. I think the genius in lean was to get things right first time rather than spending a lot of time checking afterward. And it was shifting from economies of scale to economies of time, if I may say. Now tell me, if it is about getting things right first time and getting things taken, reducing waste, adding value in the overall process, makes sense. It is, why would we not need this? We would need this in our construction projects too. If we could do this right first time, rather than checking things, it is right, let's get it right first time. So all the checking that we do, the revisions, and whether it is in releasing a work package with a hold or with some information still missing right from the EWP stages, or the guy who's actually doing the job, performing the weld. Why don't we look at getting things right first time? Lean, I believe brings the operational discipline of getting things done right first time. I would say Lean is a very much needed, the principles of Lean is a very much needed item in our business. Let's look at building information modeling. This evolved over a period, I would say largely in AEC industry. When I say AEC, architecture, engineering, and construction, coming from commercial plazas, infrastructure, Autodesk was pioneering most of it. Talks about cost, schedule, and facility management, and the ability to give you clash detection, etc., and giving you information centricity all in one spot, including the supplier data, etc. Interestingly, in one of the meetings in Norway, in this industry, what I find was even as of date, the complaint from a major player in this industry, their stock prices are very high, they're doing very well, unlike most EPCs. They were also complaining that when will they learn to get the 3D model done right? So the 3D modeling that they do, yeah, largely is cosmetic, but gets the project going. But really, in terms of buying quantity, is getting the industry is still trying to mature to getting the 3D model right to the level where it can be relied upon. But in any case, evolved from the 2D flat files to 3D, and all the BIM practices basically brought it all the way to 7D, etc. They talk about that. But if you look at what we are as construction industry, we are at a changing phase where AEC, the process, power, and marine, from where I would say AWP comes from, or Lean from manufacturing, these three can be convergent because they do give us three important aspects. One is economies of information, other is economies of time and quality, and if you look at AWP, we are bringing economies in scope. So if you looked at this, these three do converge and it can be synergistic. A few more minutes in terms of role of technology. If you're looking at all this, I think it is important that we touch that, and then we'll start concluding and we can open up to more questions. I would like you to be challenged and break through that paradigm trap. But let's start with the reality. After the home office, when I was at site, reality that I dealt with all the tools, where I was on one of the large jobs, when I get to site, there is the 3D model review station, and I can go, somebody can go operate it and take pictures, and all that is going on great. But majority of the work was managed like this, and a ton of logs, and working across 8 different major contractors building a large project. This multiplied into several sheets. This is what it is. Then I looked at what did we do in terms of the decades of technology that has been around. And with all due respect to people who are from technology companies, even ourselves, in some ways, every other industry has improved. And look, so many technologies, they have been around from 30 to 40 years now. But the impact on construction project has not, the gap has not yet been closed. In fact, we've gone down probably, including the latest building information modeling is around from 2010. So there is something still amiss. So purely technology alone cannot help. And I'm citing this McKinsey study. All these blue dots are the ways to go digital, do things using some technology or some system, etc. But if you see the invisible problem, it is the gray behind these blue dots. So simply trying to go digital doesn't really solve the problem, to the extent that if you don't improve the methods, this is as late as August, dozens of attempts to try to just do a digital solution fails, okay? We are still having the problems of overrunning the budget and schedule delays. So without improving a method, my point here is we gotta do something which really helps the industry, and the method along with technology is important. And as I said, I shared 2-3 important methods out there. Even in the building information modeling and the plant lifecycle management, I thought it will be worthwhile to show you how it all stacked up, where they started, what came when, etc. In process power and marine, I think we started with components and specification. Take any 3D modeling software in PPM, you have to first seed the project with reference database, which is all component and specification data. Then you prepare the 3D model, unlike in some other type of approaches. End of the day, if you look at the topmost part, in whichever sequence, both sides, the two major aspects of construction in AC or PPM, they have all somewhat come at the same levels. They arrived in different order, but today I see technology doesn't matter. How we improve our execution, that is the key. And while technology is in front of you, let's not get lost in this digital twin equation either, because as of now, digital twin means getting a 3D geometry, supplier data, and design and documents all in one spot. That is all about what we built, helps from an owner perspective for sure. But if we are building things, what is missing is, what did we do to build the thing? Did it take us 10 hours or it took us a week to do this? What permits? Where was the material delayed? What happened during the build piece of it? That's missing. That is what is needed in execution. So on the digital twin side, what I would request is pay attention to execution data. So as we come to concluding today's topic, let's look at what's the end goal. And somebody really put it very nicely in this one comprehensive slide or one visual. And they put across all what is going on our projects, whether it is time on tools where we started WorkFace planning, scaffolding costs, equipment idle time, spending time in material tracking. End of the day, these are all the inefficiencies that, if I may say, if 30 to 40% is wastage, if a 100-story building is constructed, if you would have done it right, 30 to 40 floors of that should have been given for free. So point is that this aspects of project delivery, we have to touch on one or the other or multiple of these things when we are implementing advanced work packaging. When you look at it from a global perspective, look at it in addressing what can we do to improve the project value. So whether it is our guide, advanced work packaging, or the big fours or big fives who are providing all the research and recommendations, etc., that industry can improve productivity, McKinsey says up to 50 to 60%. And there are capital project value improvement can be done in excess of 10% or so. Yes, I do believe it can be realized. We have to work by understanding that just one thing won't do it. The AWP is not a silver bullet. It's not an easy button, but at the same time, I do believe that when you're able to get a handle around scope, which the discipline of advanced work packaging brings, we can really have a sure shot in terms of achieving what we say 10% TIC. So I do call upon these people who have attended today to work together to help the world build better, safely, smartly, and responsibly. So let's join hands and make this realized in a, sooner way, in a faster way, and in a better way. My email is in front of you in the screen, and if you need any more information, certainly feel free to get in touch with me. I'll be happy. Whatever I know is for you to, I'm available to share. Knowledge is raining everywhere. Whatever I know, I'll share with you. I'm looking forward for you guys to also share with us what can we do to build better. Steve, questions or anything that you want to bring up?
Yeah, thanks so much, Yogesh. That was a great presentation. That was echoed by Luigi from Teknobuilt as well in the comments. So thanks, Luigi, for joining, and glad you enjoyed it. If anyone does have questions or comments at this time, please look for the Q&A feature in your attendee panel. You can submit your comments and questions to Yogesh. Shiv as well says, excellent presentation, Yogesh. Thank you so much. Any comments from Lloyd, our facilitator today, to help lead us into our Q&A?
I'd like to just mirror what Steve said. I think it was a great presentation. One of the things I'm kind of curious about, Yogesh, when I know you spent a fair bit of time traveling to Korea and India and Europe. So what one or two things really struck you as being different in the implementation of, say, advanced work packaging in, say, Italy versus North America?
Oh, so I think in certain parts it was more of a curiosity entering into advanced work packaging. Haven't even heard the word AWP, and at least the experience in Italy has been that once they got it, that this is what it is, I felt that they took it as an opportunity to transform their delivery. So I may say that I have had greater resistance from engineering teams here in North America to do something different versus the embrace that I felt. But these are, again, a couple of examples only. So once the engineering management buy-in was much more easier, maybe because it is late in the game and there's a lot more maturity, but certainly it was a much more the cultural issue, which I thought would be greater, was actually not there.
So I'm curious, I know Luigi is on the line, and Luigi is from Italy. I was just wondering if he had any thoughts as to what he's seen and what he thinks the differences are between, say, adoption in Italy and adoption in North America.
I think enable Luigi to be able to speak or something.
Yeah, perhaps. Oh, here we go. One moment. I think I have the opportunity to allow Luigi to speak directly. One moment, please.
And Nayan also has a question which I'd like to
Oh, I see. So Luigi, unfortunately, has a limitation technologically right now to be able to speak to us. Maybe we can take this conversation up on the LinkedIn Advanced Work Packaging Community of Practice group after.
So Nayan Kumar from CNRL is asking if AWP is used for pre-com and com activity ever. Is AWP used only, or is AWP only used for construction? So I think the end game of an AWP delivery is basically to take it all the way to commissioning and startup. So in a proper AWP job, we also look at not only the installation work packages, but another term which it's not in the guide as much, but what I call is the TCPs, turnover commissioning packages. In fact, the prioritization, etc., forward pass from how we will build it from a construction perspective, but a backward pass of early definition of commissioning packages and the priority and the sequence in which the volume that you define, how does it tally in terms of if it is a pipe rack or coming from a unit onto the main pipe rack, etc. What are the boundary definitions? These are some important considerations in advanced work packaging. So if I may say, the answer is that advanced work packaging, the end game is commissioning and startup. And so those considerations are brought early into AWP execution, AWP planning and execution. Simply starting at the last part of it with pre-com and com activity, in some ways you can use that, but it is not, I won't call it AWP anymore. It is more of doing a WorkFace planning for your pre-com and com activity. If you did something in advance, then I would say it is AWP.
Just a quick comment. CII is actually got a research team looking into commissioning and startup, and they're going to be reporting out in August of this year. And at the Houston conference, we're going to be taking their recommendations and talking about how to implement them. So there is some work being done on this that will be released in August, and then will be expanded upon in October in Houston. Just thought I'd share that.
Great. I also see Luigi had difficulty in on the Zoom, but his one of the point he's sharing is very interesting. He says that he finds AWP to be considered as the right method post this COVID-19, and we should be looking at revisiting this, how it will operate in the field. But it is interesting because as we see companies that are either proceeding cautiously with their projects post with all this turmoil, or they have stopped it but will resume at some point of time. If you had an AWP job running, whether you're bringing it to a halt or you want to resume, if the packaging philosophy was there, the positioning of where you were is much more accurate, and to restart it is much more easier than what you would have done if you were not doing it that way, if all the work fronts were open. So I do agree with what Luigi is sharing there. But on the other aspect, how much can you manage this digitally so that you don't have to be in the trailer all the time? People will come back to work with a mindset that there are many more ways that I could have done this without really going out there for 1.5 hours and then picking up the information. So let's be prepared. The digital AWP is going to be an important game changer in this aspect.
Okay, so we've got a number of questions and comments now coming to you, Yogesh, through both the panelist chat and the Q&A. We do have a comment from Peter Dumont. He says the marriage of AWP with smart contracts and blockchain is a game changer and the next evolution of AWP implementation. This is a near-term focus of Prairie Dog as part of the CII CURT OS2 initiative. I wonder if you can speak to that as a technology expert.
You know, that is an obvious fit and an important fit, which we never looked at. End of the day, if you look at people who are in this business, the problem has been we don't get paid on time. We do all this work and rework, but the industry still suffers in delayed payments. If I do all this, nobody will be more productive than the guy who gets paid on time. He will be motivated to do this. If we do all this work packaging and all that good stuff because contractor requires or owner requires it, and you don't pay these guys who are actually performing, don't expect too much of a change in terms of productivity. End result, if you do this smart contract, one of the things that we are working on is it is going to all the substantiation in terms of the scope, the as-bills, the quality checks, all when it is all digitally tied. I want to get paid faster. That's important. So good point, Pete, and completely in alignment with that. Sabrine from Italy has brought a point that, you know what, this approach should not add too many people onto the project. And how can we do, this has to be something where existing people need to be able to be trained or to be able to adapt to it. And I think that is also an important approach. I wouldn't put a construction engineer and another separate guy to do AWP. In my this is an important organizational aspect. Often I've seen a separate team going out and doing the AWP thing, and other people are doing business as usual. It's a recipe for failure. If you do that, you're opening parallel ways of operating. AWP is a method change. Your construction engineer, your engineering lead, if he was doing it certain way, has to come on board to do this the AWP way, if I may say. So that's important. And I'm not looking, if you have too many extra people doing AWP as a separate team, I discourage you from that, to be honest. It's good to do a research there, but to apply it on a real project, you better embed this and make it part of the nervous system of your job.
So we're at 11 now, and before we go, I just want to try to answer one more question. For those who have to drop off at the top of the hour here, thank you for joining us, and we will distribute a recording of this presentation afterward. Watch for that. So an anonymous attendee has commented here, coming from a technology background, I feel like I'm missing some of the know-hows and day-to-day work belonging to the construction world. Is there any literature you recommend where I can learn more about AWPs and construction methods?
A lot of this, yeah, I would recommend you to come to the COAA library. Link can be shared. It is available for free. Most of the content that you see, checklist and the methods, etc., going all the way till the discipline level, has been put across. And certainly the COAA website is a great resource, but I'll be happy to share if the person is willing to email some other literature that I've read in there, because all that is only AWP, but generally construction methods, there are a few other important words Mark Farmer has written. We have consolidated some of that, and I'll be happy to share some of that links. So it's not just one spot. There are a few areas, yes, a few different articles I would recommend for that. So please share contact, and it will be great to get together with you.
Great, great. And as Shiv has pointed out, the CII best practices are a great place to start as well. So I say let's wrap it up here. If anyone does have questions or comments that they would like to send to Yogesh directly, it's yogesh@teknobuilt.com. Again, we encourage you to join us at the Advanced Work Packaging Community of Practice group on LinkedIn. And like I said, we will post a link to the recording there, and you can post any additional comments or questions you have there to keep the conversation rolling. So I'll pass it over to Lloyd to close us off for the day.
Yeah, I just want to finish by thanking Yogesh for the great presentation. And there are a number of questions that we weren't able to get to, both through the chat feature and through the Q&A feature. I'm wondering, Yogesh, if we were to provide you with some of those questions, could you respond to them on the Community of Practice website?
Definitely, I'll do that.
Well, thanks so much. And thanks for everyone who attended.
Thank you all. Be safe, and let's help the world build better as we resume soon. Okay? Take care.